Link TV, connecting you to the world. Link TV is viewer supported. Watch more at linktv.org.
Link TV presents Mosaic World News from the Middle East. Here are today's top stories.
Iran blamed for quarter of US casualties in Iraq. Will Kenya's new constitution build a solid democracy? And Jordanian family teaches children the value of fasting. Mosaic World News from the Middle East begins now.
The United Nations has said that, in the past 2 days, the floods have displaced 1 million people in southern Pakistan. With this development, the number of people affected by the disaster has reached 7 million.
وقد أمرت السلطات الباكستانية نحو 300,000 من سكان مدينة ثاتا جنوبي البلاد.
Pakistani authorities ordered close to 300,000 residents of the southern city of Fatah to evacuate after the floods caused a leak in a dam located only several kilometers away from the city. The United Nations said that the situation in southern Pakistan is getting even worse.
يسير من سيء إلى أسوأ.
In Basham, northern Pakistan, the situation is not much better than that of the south. The floods have forced thousands of people to leave the region in search of shelter.
Abdurrahman Matar reports on a family in Basham that was displaced by the floods.
In a semi-isolated region in northern Pakistan's Basham province, the floods and landslides destroyed everything that Lal Hassan Khan's family owned. They have nothing left but parts of their house and farm. The Indus River swept away everything except for their memories.
The water suddenly came in late at night. First, rocks started to sporadically roll down from the mountains. Then huge blocks of rocks rapidly rolled down. We barely managed to escape from the house in the stormy weather and save my family from death.
30 يوما بلا مأوى. After 3 days without shelter, the family realized that waiting for help is useless, so they came back here to their destroyed home.
Hassan built this temporary room in which I arranged the things that I could find from the house. I wanted to reaffirm our desire to recover even just one thing from what we used to have.
Hassan realizes that his loss is minuscule in comparison to what happened and is still happening in many parts of Pakistan. But to him, this is a loss that cannot be compensated. The only thing he can do is try not to give in to the disaster or despair. So this family survived 2 disasters with immense difficulties, the floods and the landslides. Despite the fact that the family lost almost everything, they still insist on facing the challenges of life, perhaps because they don't have any other choice. Abdul Rahman Matar, Al Jazeera, Basham, northern Pakistan.
The U.S. envoy to the Middle East, George Mitchell, is preparing for the tripartite summit scheduled to be held next week in Washington.
Just several days are left until Mahmoud Abbas and Benjamin Netanyahu meet in Washington. On September 2nd, the two will enter the White House, each one of them holding his specific requirements related to the direct negotiations. The summit's success or failure will have implications in both Israel and Palestine. The Palestinian president, who is attending the negotiations only because of pressure, will arrive in the White House with his demands and conditions aimed at guaranteeing real and serious negotiations on major issues, such as the border, settlements, Jerusalem, and refugees. According to Israelis, these issues do not have a good outcome waiting for them. These very issues are what Israelis are nervous about, or more precisely, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. He formed a special team for the negotiations, which will be officially headed by him. Meanwhile, the real leadership of the negotiation team will be given to Yitzhak Molko, who has been responsible for talking with the U.S. since 2009. However, Netanyahu does not seem to be in a better position than his Palestinian Palestinian rival. The Israeli Prime Minister is getting ready to face the settlement dilemma and the demands to freeze it. In the event he doesn't meet the promises he made internally regarding the resumption of settlement activities after September 26th, Netanyahu will put his government coalition at risk and may lose the support of the national right wing and religious parties. However, in the event he gives the green light to resume construction activities, Netanyahu will miss the opportunity to achieve progress in the peace process, which may drag the region into a new wave of violence. All that Netanyahu has sought to promote, with U.S. help, is talks about a midway solution based on a proposal submitted by Minister Dan Meridor. The minister calls for revoking the settlement freeze in major settlement blocks, but keeping it in effect in isolated towns, which will not remain under Israeli control as part of the lasting settlement agreement. This midway solution, which seems to enjoy U.S. support, will not meet Palestinian aspirations. This will in turn dim the hopes of the Quartet for Mideast Peace Committee, which says that it's possible to complete the negotiations aimed at solving the more than 6-decade-long conflict within a year.
والقدس اليوم كانت تحت طوق أمني مشدد فرض بمناسبة صلاة الجمعة الثالثة خلال شهر رمضان.
Israel has imposed a tight curfew on Jerusalem on this third Friday of the holy month of Ramadan. The Israeli occupation authorities prevented men under the age of 50 and women under 45 from attending Friday prayer at Al-Aqsa Mosque. As part of the collective punishment against worshippers, Palestinians were forced to stand in long lines lasting hours before being allowed to cross Israeli checkpoints into Jerusalem.
بسبب الاكتظاظ الشديد الذي تسببت فيه نقاط التفتيش التي أقامها الاحتلال. وإلى الأراضي الفلسطينية المحتلة تمتد يد العون الإماراتي.
Also in the Palestinian territories, the UAE has pledged support for Palestinian families during the holy month of Ramadan. More than 12,000 poor Palestinian families are receiving fresh meat from the Khalifa bin Zayed Al Nahyan Charity and Humanitarian Foundation in cooperation with the UN Relief and Works agencies UNRWA. The food supplies are part of the UAE-sponsored Ramadan projects that were launched in 19 Palestinian camps in the West Bank and Jerusalem. Our correspondent, Shuruk Assad, reports from Ramallah.
هذه العائلات هي من أصل أكثر من 12,000 أسرة.
These families are part of more than 12,000 families classified by UNRWA as the poorest and most deprived in the West Bank refugee camps. The agency, in cooperation with Khalifa bin Zayed Al Nahyan Charity and Humanitarian Foundation, has pledged food supplies, including fresh meat, to needy families.
بحصص من اللحوم الطازجة.
This project is very valuable to UNRWA. It is co-sponsored by the Khalifa bin Zayed Al Nahyan Charity and Humanitarian Foundation. The project caters to the poorest families in the refugee camps.
The aid pledged by the Khalifa bin Zayed Al Nahyan Charity and Humanitarian Foundation in partnership with UNRWA is estimated at $400,000. As part of this partnership, which started nearly 3 years ago, Khalifa bin Zayed Foundation has sponsored a number of projects, including education and food. The Emirates' donation helped close part of UNRWA's budget cap, which is estimated to reach $48 million by the end of the current year.
The Khalifa bin Zayed Foundation has pledged aid, including food. The foundation is helping us launch projects.
The foundation also pledged support for civil society organizations, women associations, and rehabilitation centers. This food program is one of the Ramadan projects, which were launched in 19 refugee camps in the West Bank, including Ramallah, Jerusalem, Nablus, Bethlehem, and other cities. The families are in dire need of aid amidst soaring prices and the difficult humanitarian and economic conditions caused by unemployment, the settlers' acts of aggression, and the blockade and the separation wall.
The youth are unemployed. There's no work. There's nothing to do. You can see for yourself.
We would like to thank those who are trying to help us. We particularly thank the UAE, which has always stood by us.
In every crowded home in these Palestinian refugee camps, there's a troubling story to be told. However, the residents here are happy to find out that someone in this world is thinking about them.
Teaching the young how to fast is entrusted to the adults. With the beginning of the holy month of Ramadan, families begin encouraging children to fast for a few hours at the beginning of the month so they can get used to hunger, thirst, and learn self-control at a young age. In the Jordanian capital, Amman, these customs don't differ than those in the rest of the Arab countries, in which this fast carries a variety of names. Our correspondent, Sawal Sawaka, visited one of those families and brought back the following report.
Gently, gently. Ra'ed and Dana spend their fast playing and having fun until it's their time to break the fast in about an hour. Their childhood, the rising temperature, and their great thirst do not prevent them from fasting. They are both getting used to it now, so it becomes easier for them when they get older. In the kitchen, their mother is preparing for them a light meal that marks the end of a few hours of hunger and thirst.
Children are entrusted to us so we can teach them at first how to fast for half an hour. Then it becomes an hour. It all depends on their age. If they are older than 7 years of age, they fast until the Asr prayer. Then they fast for the duration of the day.
In a neighborhood of the capital, Amman, children gather to spend their fast together. Some are fasting for a full day or a half day. Others, just a few hours. What matters is that they're fasting.
Sudanese President Omar al-Bashir joined a number of African leaders and representatives from various governments and relevant institutions for Kenya's celebration of the ratification of its new constitution. A referendum for the new constitution was held at the beginning of the month. Kenya is one of the countries that signed the International Criminal Court's agreement, which requires Kenya to hand over President Bashir if found in the country. The International Court is calling for the arrest of Bashir on war crime charges. The new Kenyan constitution includes political reforms, which political observers believe will place Nairobi on the threshold of a new era in its modern history.
على إيقاع الطبول في ميادين نيروبي تحتفل كينيا بالإعلان رسميا عن دستور جديد للبلاد.
To the rhythms of drums in the squares of Nairobi, Kenyans celebrated the official announcement of the country's new constitution. The celebration came less than 1 month after Kenyans voted for it on August 4th, with 67% of the vote. The new Kenyan constitution has ended the worst nightmare found in the memories of Kenyans, recollections of violence that the country witnessed after the 2007 elections, which left 1,300 people killed and more than 650,000 displaced. The majorities of Kenyans hope that the new constitution will create a base upon which the presidential system can be built, puts an end to the power struggle, and meets the Kenyan people's expectations for development and justice.
It's a new experiment
in which we are trying to create a nation that runs on the competition of ideas and individuals, rather than forcing people to coalesce around ethnicities in order to defend their interests.
يقلص دستور كينيا الجديد من الصلاحيات المطلقة لرئيس البلاد.
The new constitution reduces the absolute power of the president, supports the rule of decentralization for the provinces, and gives citizens the right to elect the governors and representatives of their own provinces. It also sanctions the formation of a Senate consisting of 47 members who have the power to impeach the president. It ratifies the rights of minorities and Kenyans with dual citizenship. In addition, it requires respect for cultural diversity and the characteristics of all the ethnic communities. Moreover, it affirms the equal distribution of wealth to the citizens and gives the Muslim minority, which accounts for 35% of the population, the right to establish legal courts for Muslim Kenyans. The courts will specialize in reviewing personal cases and disputes among Muslims, as well as inheritance cases.
أعرب جيمس جيفري السفير الأمريكي في العراق عن اعتقاده بأن جماعات تدعمها إيران مسؤولة عن ربع الخسائر.
U.S. Ambassador to Iraq, James Jeffrey, believes that groups backed by Iran were responsible for a quarter of U.S. casualties in the Iraq War. He further said that Iran has sought to use Iraqi groups to destabilize Iraq and make it inhospitable for foreign forces. Jeffrey's remarks come days before August 31st, the deadline to end U.S. combat operations in Iraq.
والمقرر في 31 من الشهر الجاري.
7 years after entering Iraq, the Americans are finally leaving. The US presence is about to end with the withdrawal of combat forces from Iraq and the reduction of troop levels to below 50,000. Over the past 7 years, the Americans have influenced the political scene in Iraq, introducing new concepts to the political equation, such as election, representation, parliament, and candidate, and others, as the country moved from a single to a multi-party ruling system. With the arrival of Al-Qaeda in Iraq, the Americans resorted to violence and dragged the country into a chaotic cycle of death in a systematic campaign aimed at stirring sectarian conflicts in Iraq.
The political process, instead of creating an institutional ruling system, has created a new ruling system based on sectarianism. What they did was replace the single-party system by what I like to call the single-sect rule.
With the arrival of US forces in Iraq in 2003, English started to gain momentum, as it's the only way to communicate with foreign troops. Along with English, the Americans influenced Iraqis in many other ways, such as introducing the art of tattooing and wearing Western clothes, which are worn by civilians and military personnel.
انقسم العراقيون بين مؤيد ومعارض للانسحاب الأمريكي من العراق.
Iraqis have expressed mixed reactions over the US withdrawal from their country, with some supporting it and others opposing it. US forces will leave Iraq, but they will leave behind a culture which may be more influential than their military presence, especially if the scientific and civil articles of the US-Iraq Security Agreement are implemented. Tariq Maher, Arabiya, Baghdad.
أكد مسؤولون محليون في محافظة بابل جنوبي العراق أن التلوث الإشعاعي.
According to local officials in the southern Iraqi province of Babel, radioactive pollution caused by the random use of weapons and shells containing depleted uranium is more lethal and destructive than weapons used in the Second World War. The province was a military target during the 2003 US-led invasion of Iraq.
The deterioration of Iraq's environmental conditions could be attributed to years of crippling economic sanctions and consecutive wars. Iraq may be able to overcome some of its environmental challenges once it starts the reconstruction and development efforts. However, one of the problems that will not be easily overcome revolves around the issue of radioactive pollution caused by the excessive use of depleted uranium, or DU, weaponry and shells in the aftermath of the 2003 occupation of Iraq. The DU weapons are considered to be more lethal and destructive than the weapons used in the Second World War, as confirmed by Babel's officials.
Some internationally banned weapons were in Iraq during the Persian Gulf War, the first and second, and after the 2003 invasion by the US and foreign forces, as confirmed by media reports. The use of these weapons has not only affected humans, but other living organisms as well.
مشاكل متعددة تكتنف ظاهرة التلوث الإشعاعي في العراق.
Several problems are associated with radioactive pollution in Iraq, most notably the lack of data, reports, and surveys on the issue. Experts used various names to describe Iraq's environmental pollution problem, with some referring to it as a disaster and others as a massacre. They said that the province of Babel suffers from massive environmental problems that require tremendous and exceptional efforts to solve.
The appropriate authorities, including Babel University and the Departments of Public Health and Environment, must conduct a study to assess the environmental and health hazards caused by the radiation. Then they need to present the recommendations to the central government, which, in turn, must take the appropriate measures to combat this negative phenomenon.
Environmental experts in Iraq are warning that radioactive waste, which is widespread in the province of Babel, poses health risks to the residents, including cancer. Doctors of various health centers and institutions estimated that 7 people die monthly due to radiation.
Let it be known that dozens of people are facing death each month due to cancer-related illnesses and deformities. Many mothers are concerned about birth defects and newborns with deformities.
So far, the problem of radioactive pollution in Iraq has not gotten the attention of international organizations or the Iraqi government. Only little has been done to assess the problem of radiation in Iraq, and most of it was conducted by local environmentalists or Iraqi research centers. From Babel, Ali Sirawi, Al-Alam.
Abbas and Netanyahu will finally sit face to face. Will Obama succeed in bringing an elusive peace to the Middle East? Or will this be just another lost opportunity?
Answers to these questions and more on Link TV's Mosaic Intelligence Report.
Direct talks between Palestinians and Israelis are scheduled to commence in Washington on September 2nd, a decade after the last real final status talks and nearly 2 years after the last direct talks. Mahmoud Abbas and Benjamin Netanyahu will come face to face for dinner and talks in Washington as guests of President Obama after 18 months of shuttle diplomacy and indirect proximity talks headed by Special Envoy for Middle East Peace, George Mitchell. While much has been placed on these talks culminating in an agreement within a year, most Palestinians and Israelis remain skeptical of their success. More importantly, hopes and expectations have been inflated in some media reports, adding confusion and creating myths about what might turn up only to be yet another photo op in DC. Here are some of the myths. Myth number 1. Although Abbas and Netanyahu have not sat face to face for the past 18 months, contacts and cooperation between the Palestinian Authority and the Israeli government have not ceased on several fronts, most notably in commerce and security. Salam Fayyad, Prime Minister of the Palestinian National Authority, spoke at the Herzliya conference in February alongside Israeli Defense Minister Ehud Barak at a time when his boss, President Mahmoud Abbas, was insisting on a total halt to settlement construction before peace talks could resume. Also, Shin Bet and Israel Defense Forces senior officials have made several visits to Ramallah for meetings with senior PA officials and members of the Palestinian security services. Myth number 2. Settlement construction is business as usual in the West Bank and East Jerusalem. More importantly, settlers have accelerated their activities, taking over Palestinian homes in East Jerusalem, in Arab neighborhoods in Sheikh Jarrah, Shafat, and Silwan. Myth number 3. Israel's concern over security in the West Bank is exaggerated. Today, the Palestinian Authority is policing the West Bank on behalf of the IDF. Very few Israeli deaths, only 2 in 2010, have been registered due to attacks in the West Bank. Rocket attacks from the Gaza Strip have also subsided. Israel's main security concern these days is Iran.
There is a great challenge afoot. Iran must not be allowed to develop nuclear weapons.
Myth number 4. Neither Prime Minister Netanyahu nor President Abbas have the mandate to deliver a peace agreement. Netanyahu would face strident opposition from within his Likud party and fierce opposition from his own foreign minister, Avigdor Lieberman, who has the ability and influence to unravel his fragile coalition. Abbas also faces a complex problem of legitimacy. His term as president has expired, and under his watch, Palestinian unity was fractured when Hamas managed to rout out his forces from Gaza.
The leader of the Hamas predicted that negotiations between the Israelis and the Palestinians will be catastrophic. The Hamas boss claims the talks will serve Israel by improving its image, and he called for a Palestinian strategy that is based on resistance.
Myth number 5. Prime Minister Netanyahu insisted for many weeks that he was ready to come to the negotiating table in Washington, but without preconditions. In fact, both he and President Mahmoud Abbas have already announced preconditions, raising expectations and laying the groundwork for failure. Among the preconditions laid out by Netanyahu for peace with the Palestinians is a recognition of Israel as a Jewish state. Palestinians consider this condition as a non-starter. Instead, they'd like to delve into sensitive areas such as the construction of Jewish settlements on occupied territory, the status of Jerusalem, the borders of a future Palestinian state, and the right of return, issues that will be difficult to overcome. Meanwhile, Mahmoud Abbas has declared that he will withdraw from the negotiations if settlement activity resumes. The settlement moratorium is due to expire on September 26. Benjamin Netanyahu seems unlikely to extend it. I'm Jamal Dajani for the Mosaic Intelligence Report.
More about this program or to share your thoughts, visit us at linktv.org/news. Stay up to date on the Middle East. Follow Jamal at twitter.com/Jamal Dajani. The views expressed on Mosaic are from contributing broadcasters, not Link TV or its sponsors. The production of Mosaic is made possible from support of viewers like you. Thank you. Watch Mosaic World News online, stay up to date with breaking news, read our blog, get transcripts of past shows and more at linktv.org/Mosaic.
This program is brought to you by Link TV for educational and non-commercial use only. Link TV is the only U.S. network dedicated to global and national news, uncompromising documentaries, and diverse cultural programs, programs which connect you to the world.